Critical Role Recap Season 2, Episode 53. So last week, the Mighty Nein dealt with some abyssal demon dog things in order to get cheaper moorbounders that they could use as mounts, and then talked to a few of the local heads of state and were given a couple jobs that they could take on if they so desired. And they basically just bedded down right outside the city in order to take a break and later decide what they wanted to do. And that's where we picked up this week, with them sleeping just outside in their little sphere that Caleb can conjure up for them. Ford has another dream of Ukatoa, in which Ukatoa seems a little pissed off at him and starts saying new words like punish, basically saying like, you know, you better get back to freeing me. I'll reward you, but if you don't, I'm going to fuck you up. Kills him in his dream. Basically, he wakes up vomiting up some foamy seawater again. And so he tells everyone about that. After that, they talk about what they should do. They still haven't really decided what the best course of action is. They do speak with Knott's husband and find out that he hasn't been interrogated or tortured or anything like that, and he seems to just be held captive for the moment. They are kind of leaning towards doing some of these missions that they were given by the local authorities in order to curry some favor and possibly use those favors to just get her husband back without having to, you know, try and break him out or anything. But they decide to go to Zorth's pits and go ahead and get the training. Caleb, Caduceus, and Jester are the ones that end up bonding with the beasts and getting the specific training. So they have their 3 moorbounders now that they're linked to in some minor way. They've gained the ability to give them a couple of basic commands. You know, they shouldn't be eaten alive by them, but that's pretty much it for the training. After that, they wandered through the town a bit and just tried to investigate the 2 separate missions that they were on. The one is to find the Imperial spy, and the other is to figure out the source of this abyssal problem and fix it. So they basically just kind of wander around to a bunch of different shopkeepes and try to talk to people and investigate a little more. They don't really learn much. They find out that meat's spoiling quickly, which they already kind of heard about. They just see it in person, and that people are having nightmares, which they already knew about. So they don't really learn too much more. However, they do meet some interesting characters, and they end up buying a few anti-venom potions of some sort, some health potions, and possibly take on another task for this interesting, creepy old lady creature who is actually apparently like 3 kobolds inside of a big robe that are pretending to be an old lady. But they agree to possibly grab her some materials to help her create more healing potions in exchange for discounted rates for themselves. After that, they go to the 4 Corners, which they had been told about, where they could find this Imperial spy, and it's also just like the main hub of the area. It's the bar, it's the big tavern, and we find out it is called the 4 Corners because the main feature of this bar is a square fighting pit, basically a square gravel pit where 4 people face off against each other at once. They drop some money into the pit as their wager, and then 3 other people walk up, drop money in, and whoever wins takes all of the takes all of the money and jewels or whatever people leave as their spoils. So Bo goes around and tries to talk to people and mostly just pisses people off as per usual. No one really is giving her any information. A couple of people do say though, like, you know, maybe you should drop some money in the pit and then, you know, maybe let's just fight instead of talking, essentially. During this time, they notice that there is a female drow that seems to be paying a lot of attention to Bo. So Bo and Ford both go to try and talk to this drow, but don't really get anywhere. However, finally, Bo gets fed up with it and goes ahead and drops some money in the pit, as does Jester. Eventually drops something of value into the pit. And then the ogre that Bo had spoken with, who initially offered to fight her, comes over and gladly takes part in the fight. And then the drow quickly dashes over and also joins the fight. So our one and only bout of combat is the 4 of them fighting off against each other: Jester, Bo, the ogre, and the drow. The ogre seems to be a fighter, and then the drow is definitely a monk. The fight does not go super well for them, but it does end up at the end being pretty close because it is kind of like, it's supposed to be this free-for-all setting, but obviously Bo and Jester are never hitting each other, so they kind of have a little bit of an advantage there because the ogre and the drow are fighting both of them as well as each other. However, at the very end, the drow narrowly wins with some lucky rolls and ends up being the victor with only 2 health remaining, we find out. And so she takes all the spoils. However, after this fight, she finally does talk with Bo briefly and says basically like, we can't talk here, let's go somewhere else. So most of the Mighty Nein follow the drow out to a more secretive area, and there the drow removes her magical disguise, and we find out that it is Dairon, which is Bo's trainer from the Cobalt Soul. And so we find out that this drow is the Imperial spy that they were sent to capture. Obviously, they're not planning on turning her in for now. And that's pretty much where the episode ends up, with with Bo kind of reuniting with her old mentor, and them starting to discuss like what they've learned and what the next plan of action is. So they did find the Imperial spy. However, they're definitely not going to be able to give her up in exchange for the 5,000 gold or the favor reward. So it looks like they pretty much have to go do the abyssal thing if they want to try and curry favor, or they could just pack up and leave the city. But yeah, that was pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.